who works with you here at Engineering Means Guy headquarters. Thanks for letting us take over. Shout out to Papaya Tutor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just wanted to give you guys a quick update about our partnership and, quick little info.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you already know us, but if you don't, I'm Sandra, the CEO and founder of Papaya Tutor, a marketplace where tutors can help you love the classes that you're hating in engineering right now at a very affordable price. And this is Eduardo.
Yeah, I am the CEO of Loomis Automation. We are an industrial automation company that focuses on software development for machines.
Yeah, and for the partnership, right, between Papaya and Loomis is that we hope to bring more engineering internships and externship opportunities for Papaya students and tutors because we believe in them. And we are very lucky to be working with you, Nee, to educate us in this special edition of Black History Month, where we're using the platform to give the voice of Black female engineers.
Yeah, and today we just want to introduce the theme, which is a Black female's perspective in engineering. Our guest earned her BS in biological engineering at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. And yeah, she's a very intelligent person, and I'm sure we'll be learning a lot from her.
Yes, our guest has many, many degrees, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. She's working on her Ph.D. right now, highly educated. She also does research on environmental and social implications of autonomous vehicle technologies. She hosts a podcast, Black in Grad School, to provide encouragement and tools for women and people of color to successfully navigate the graduate education journey. And a fun fact, we learned that she was also a tutor back in college, and that helped her pay the bills. So please welcome Black in Grad School, Alante Whitmore.
All right.
All right, y'all.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much for that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Nick.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So shout out to everybody joining us here. Shout out to all the guests. I want you all to get ready to give me some hearts. If you are watching this on Instagram, go ahead and tap the heart. Tap the hearts as we get ready to welcome our guest for this evening. My good friend, Alante Whitmore from Black in Grad School. Get the hearts going, y'all. Get the hearts going. Get the hearts going as we welcome her on to Women in STEM Wednesday. Hey, Alante, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Look at that. I'm good. I'm good.
Oh,
you see the hearts, the energy is coming your way. Yes. Shout out to everybody for giving all the hearts. Shout out to all of you all. Thank you so much for welcoming our great guest, Alante Whitmore. Alante, man, first of all, your takeover today of this account, Engineering Memes Guy, was fire, flames, loved it. That was so cool.
I really appreciate it. And thank you again to Loomis Automation and Papaya and STEMedia for letting me do the takeover. And I had a great time. It was so good to talk to people and share a little bit of my experience.
Yes. Well, of course, this is Women in STEM Wednesdays. This is our 4th installment. And this one, shout out to the organizer of the page. We really want to give a nod to Black History Month. And so you are a fitting guest, giving your space, your perspective as a Black woman, as well as being an engineer. And then we're going to learn a little bit just about grad school in general. So let's kick things off. As Papaya's CEO and founder said, Sandra, that you were also a tutor and that kind of helped you get through school. Yeah. Let's start off there a little bit because I think that's perfect alignment with what Papaya offers. What were some of the struggles and challenges you had in school, and how did tutoring even come about as a means to move forward?
Right. Well, I've been on both sides, right? I've definitely been the student in the classroom or student getting tutored.
Yes.
And I've also been a tutor. So I remember the very last class in my undergrad was circuits. Now, for the ECEs, I have so much respect for you. I sucked at circuits. Like, my brain just couldn't get it. And actually, I had a I went to the department chair, like, look, I already have a full funded master's program. I was gonna pass this class so I can graduate from A&T. And I got connected actually with Dr. Destiny Knox. She was my TA.
Mm-hmm.
She actually now works where I'm at. She's in the exact same program that I'm in. She's a professor now. amazing tutor, helped me pass the class so I could go to grad school.
Yeah.
And when I came back to school as starting my Ph.D., the first semester, just kind of getting back to footing, I was used to making a salary, and I was now making a grad student's pay. I was tutoring students in math to help them, you know, understand. And I have a deep love for teaching, so tutoring let me be a teacher while I've been a student. So those are kind of both of my experiences with tutoring.
Yeah, yeah. So you definitely see the value in having somebody that you can relate to, perhaps explain things in a different way than a professor is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Critical.
yeah.
Critical.
Yeah, and that's obviously what Papaya Tutor is seeking to do. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Who else is watching while doing online homework? Yes, yes. So hey, if you need a tutor, you have one on the line right here, as well as Papaya Tutor. Just put get on the waiting list by signing up at www.papayatutor.com and check the link in their bio. Hope you all can see that. And we have a vet here, tutoring vet. So tell me about that experience. Like, was it something you did as a part-time job? And then here's the other thing about tutoring that I'm interested in from your perspective. Was there ever a time where you were like, oh man, I need to go back and review this so I can actually help the student out a little bit?
Yes, like every time. But I think that's the cool thing about really being on either side of the tutoring. If you're being the one that's being tutored or the tutor, is like this conversation, right, of making sure you're understanding things. And it feels, since you're one-on-one or in a small group, you don't feel as uncomfortable with sharing like what you don't know. Again, also as the student or the tutor, right? Like, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Give me a minute to get back to you. If I'm the tutor, if I'm the student, I can regurgitate what I'm hearing and making sure that I understand what I'm learning, right? And so I feel like that part has always been really good for tutor as a student and as a tutor. But I think that there have definitely been some topics that I'm just super rusty on, and knowing that I have a tutoring session on that topic made me sit down, read it, understand it, and really have my own have a greater depth and understanding for it. So it's definitely helpful on both sides.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so here's the thing. We're going to do a quick engineering roll call. Y'all, this is engineering. This is Engineering Memes Guy hosting Women in STEM Wednesday. And we have Alante Whitmore from Black and in Grad School. And we're going to do a quick roll call because you're going to tell us about your engineering path. But we got Team Civil in the building. What are you representing? What engineering disciplines do we have on the live right here? We know we got people watching, doing their homework. We got Team Civil. Who else? We got any electrical engineers? What about mechanical, industrial? Drop your engineering discipline down in the chat so we can make sure we give you a shout out, because I think our guest here actually is probably, I guess, representing two different, at least, because you've taken a pivot, Alante. Oh, shout out to mechanical, civil engineering. They're coming through. Shout out to y'all. All right. Mechanical, electrical, industrial. All right. CP, slow. All right. Team environmental.
Yes.
So Alante, what you made a change, right? Where do you start? And then tell us about the pivot that you made from one type of engineering to another in your journey.
For sure. So I started originally like I got into A&T as a math major, and I was super excited. I really wanted to go down to North Carolina. Like I shared on the takeover, I'm from Detroit, so I decided to get down south. And then someone was like, well, have you heard about biological engineering? I originally wanted to be a mechanical engineer and make anatomically correct crash test dummies. That was my original goal out of high school.
Okay.
Got in math, heard about biological engineering. They offered a scholarship. And the year I went to college, y'all, was the year the recession started. And so my mom was like, if you want to go to A&T, get off my phone, take that scholarship. And that is how I got into biological engineering. So that's, I see Aggie Pride. I saw I did like bioenvironmental, so more on the natural resources side. Like we kind of mix chemistry and biology together to create products. So that was what I was doing before. And now I'm actually a civil engineer. So total pivot into civil engineering. Yeah.
Listen, I don't know about you, but I think some other civil engineers in the chat will agree with me. But I think you ended up in the right place. You ended up settling in the right place.
I totally
We got
agree.
love for y'all, environmental, electrical. We got I even saw refrigeration engineering. Shout out to you. Shout out to the chemical engineer. Crowd at 8, good to see you. So now you're in the civil engineering from bio, environmental. You kind of went the whole round.
Yeah.
Oh man, NASA JPL in the building. Shout out to you, Platinum Falcon. Well, here's what we're gonna get a little bit more perspective on, because that's the engineering. That's something everybody on here can relate to one way or another. Kind of the engineering path. Go civil engineering. We see you, Joan. Shout out to you. But we brought you on to talk about a particular theme, and that is a Black woman's perspective. And just so we can just start, because when we talked ahead of time, you kind of said, "Hey, I'm a Black woman first.
Yes.
You know, I'm in grad school and I'm in engineering, right?" And you really kind of led with that, and you like to really say, you know, that's your identity first and foremost. And so let's talk about a little bit about what that even means when you say you're a Black woman first. And let's just start with the Black part, because I know people watching this, some are from the United States, some aren't. And even if you are, maybe you aren't so clear on really why there is a Black History Month, which is what we're in now, and really the relevance of someone even saying, you know, I'm a Black person or I'm a Black woman first. So talk a little bit about that, I guess maybe your perspective, and then why is that even significant? And I'll chime in.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you know, I was born in this body. Before I decided my future and my career, you know, I was born a Black woman, and so a Black girl. And I think that for those of you all who you know aren't from the United States, like I am descendants of slaves, right? I am of African descent, and so being a part of the diaspora to me is a complex experience, but one I'm absolutely proud to embody, right? I think even being at this point in my life, and even my bloodline making it to this point in 2021, you know, I think speaks so much to the persistence and the strength of Black folk. And so when Black History Month comes around, that's a time where we get to just very much so out loud celebrate. I think within our social spaces, or even just in everyday life, of course, we're always proud to be Black, but this is really an outward appreciation, I think, of Black contributions to the American culture. We have done a lot, you know. I think Angela Rye says we built this joint for free. And so I feel like Black history is at least a point in which at the United States we acknowledge the contributions of Black folk, and I'm just proud to be in the number, in the group, you know.
Shout out to Bergenstein, says enslaved Africans brought STEM skills with them to America, and that's absolutely correct. To your point, Alante, you know, some people, you know, we talk about how there needs to be an increase in diversity, and we talk about, of course, gender diversity and even ethnic diversity. One of the unique things about Black Americans, right, African Americans, is that our history is unique in that we are the only minority in this country that had an active and even violent, inhumane attempt to try to strip us of our identity, right? Like from the get-go. And as much as that's like uncomfortable for people, it's just the reality, it's the truth. And so it's not that all of, you know, our people all came here as immigrants. It's like we came here by force and really in things that weren't correctly. And so over time, like you're saying, to even get here to 2021 has been a phenomenal journey that is a testament to who we are as a people. But also there is a need that was discovered a while ago when Black History Month was even suggested. I think it was originally Black History Week, Carnegie Mellon, right? For the need to restore and reinsert just how much we as a people brought here to this land, right? And it is, as they said, it's a tough reality and it can't be ignored. And so while, yes, we are oftentimes kind of put in the minority group and underrepresented minorities, yes, that is true. But there is a uniqueness to our story that we cannot afford. We cannot afford to allow be ignored and pushed away and eliminated from history. And I understand that you benefited in some ways from having some history, at least to a certain extent, you know, around you as you grew up in Detroit, right? Because Detroit is a predominantly Black area, unlike other parts of the United States. So what impact did just seeing that in your upbringing have on you?
Oh man, and I love talking about the city because I'm just so grateful to be from a city like Detroit. Like you said, Detroit is still a predominantly Black city. It's a majority Black city. And I grew up in a place where we have the big three. So Ford, GM, and Chrysler needed a lot of engineers to get work done. And
The
not all the
Motor City,
engineers,
automobile,
Motor City. Also, my name is a car, y'all. So it's just been in the cards for me the whole time.
Did y'all get that? Y'all give me some flame emojis for that. Did y'all get that? Alante from the Motor City, the Detroit has the name of a car. Alante,
Right.
fun fact.
And so you know, not every single engineer at these places were old white men. There were Black folks who were engineers. And so I grew up knowing Black women in engineering. I used to go to a program called DAPSEP. It's an acronym, but it's a pre-college engineering program, a Saturday engineering program. We're all familiar with those types of programs. And I met Black grad students. I met Black women who were engineers. And so it never felt daunting. Granted, graduate school engineering is grueling, but it never felt like out of place for me. I always was like, I know Viveka and so-and-so, and I met so-and-so, you know, when I was 10, 11, and 12. And so I just feel like it was it just made it so normalized to be high achieving, to be an engineer, to be in STEM. So it didn't feel like a big deal. Probably until I got to grad school, I realized, oh, it really isn't a lot of Black folks in this space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love it. Hello, my fellow Black engineers. We getting some love. Shout out to everybody who just hopped on. Good to see you. Yeah, just and again, like it was normal to you, right?
Exactly.
Even though, like, statistically in this country, it wasn't necessarily normal because of what you saw being in Detroit, around such a heavy, you know, industrialized and a lot of engineering taking place, a lot of STEM taking place. You didn't really second guess whether or not you could see yourself in that environment. So that's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And I think about, like, Black history in and of itself kind of having the purpose of normalizing that, no, we actually did contribute. Because you think about, like, years ago, decades ago, even now, unfortunately, the history books, American history, featured maybe like 2 or 3 Black people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, just you got Harriet Tubman. She was like one of the few people that was kind of made it in. You know, and you had like very few people, and then it'd be like, yeah, Harriet Tubman freed the slaves, and it just kept moving, right?
Exactly.
But never did it really go into the in-depth of really how much of a role we play. And like you said, we even did and built this country from, you know, without compensation, you know? And so that is really important. I think Carter G wanted to, from his perspective, at least some of the research I've done, Alante, he didn't even think that it would necessarily need to continue to be distinguished because hopefully we will get to a point to where it will be seen as normal, right? But unfortunately, you know, we're still trying to integrate. That's the purpose of STEMedia. That's a lot of the work that you do with Black and in grad school, to still try to make just that representation and that existence proof prevalent among our people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, though. Time for you to school me a little bit, though, because I'm not a Black woman. I'm a Black person. I'm not a Black woman. So, Alante, let's talk a little bit about that intersection and, you know, what does that add to your unique perspective, not only being African-American, but being a woman. After all, this is Women in STEM Wednesday. So talk to me a little bit.
I mean, I carry it all, again, with a sense of pride. I feel like being a Black woman in engineering, and sometimes there's a lot of different sides to it, right? Like, there are things I think that I consider that often are maybe, I think just because of the way that we're socialized, are not considered as important, right? Like, for example, in my research, I very much so embed equity into the work that I do. Like, I knew once I was going to be into this autonomous vehicle space, I was super excited for this pivot, but I was like, again, as a Black woman, I thought about who is going to have access to this technology when it comes out, right? We know it's going to be a very expensive technology. How do we ensure that everyone has this equitable access? And that's not necessarily a novel idea, but people were wanting to take on different tasks in that space. And I feel like I've been very fortunate that I was doing this work really before 2020 happened, and now people realize how important equity is in everything that we do, including in the STEM space. But I think almost it's viewed as almost less important, right? And I feel like my perspective as a Black woman, as the I'm product of a single parent household. My mother, you know, proud of her, she's on here, you know, has definitely moved up the socioeconomic ladder throughout my life. But having, you know, humble beginnings, I thought about like, how would the child that I was be able to have access to this technology and have benefits from it? And so I think all of those things, like my lived experience and of course my lens as a Black woman, definitely influences my work. Additionally, you know, when I come into spaces, I think that some people are surprised, you know, like you all probably hear, I'm Black, you know, like I am, you know, I'm
here I am.
Black
See,
woman.
get a good picture, take it all in. I'm here.
Right. And I think sometimes folks are almost kind of surprised. I think, especially when you start thinking about what an engineer looks like, how an engineer behaves or dresses. You know, I have style, you know, I enjoy to put my cute clothes on. I see I got my lashes on, you know, like I like my nails. And I think sometimes people make assumptions about what women in engineering look like, even in that space, right? And so I very much so, I think, push up against that too, simply just being myself. Like, so those things happen. And then also there's like this parading around that happens too, that is not as fun. This tokenism of being a Black woman in engineering. I am in many booklets. I'm in many emails. I'm on sides of buildings, you know. Website,
homepage.
Everywhere. In a way that's like, but I'm the only one, y'all, you know. So like, don't lie to these people. So that's the part that I don't like as much. But I mean, I like the space. I like engineering. I'm not gonna not do it because some of the things aren't as comfortable as it would be for other people.
For sure, for sure. You know, that's interesting because I did see like a study. I can't remember, somebody followed, and it was some like situation where a university copied and pasted a diverse face into like a crowd at a football game or something, at a game that they weren't even at. And it was like, yo, like, all right, it's one thing to go and try to like position and take a picture of me at the game, but it was like a situation where some university literally photoshopped somebody into the crowd because it's just a sad reality that, you know, we're still coming up short in a lot of ways of that representation. And I know what you mean though, like, at least as a Black male, I know what you mean. Like, you don't want to feel like you're talking. You want to feel like you and everything you bring to the table is valued, not just, you know, the way you look in a photo.
Exactly.
Yeah. So take a half. Oh, go ahead.
I was like, even when we were talking about this, right? Like a Black woman's perspective, not the Black woman's perspective.
Right.
And recognizing that we're not a monolith in any way, shape, or form. You know, this is just my experience in this space. Yeah.
So take a half a step back and just explain equity for a second, because I know a lot of people are getting this, but just maybe you can give us 1 or 2 examples relevant to our work as engineers in the STEM space where equity or lack thereof shows up, and how people who perhaps don't even think about it can be more conscious of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give 2 examples. I'll give one from my actual work and one from my experience. Okay. So, like I've shared before, I do autonomous vehicle work, specifically like integrating autonomous vehicle technology with public transportation systems. And so the reason that that's even important is that technology, if we have private vehicles only, AVs, then that means individuals who can afford private AVs will have access to them. And therefore, also the benefits of that, like increased safety, better road usage, like less traffic, all of those things will skew to those who are affluent. And additionally, the other side of that end is that like you're more likely to now get in a crash or potentially have a fatality because you're poor, because you can't afford a better car.
You can't afford a more safer alternative.
Yeah, and so like what that's not ideal, right?
It's a domino effect. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. And then on the other side of equity, when we talk about equity in engineering or diversity in engineering, you know, I've had times when I have been selected for a panel or a presentation and then demoted once I got there. Like, this has happened to me more than once in my PhD program where, I want you to be on this panel. I'm like, oh, I'd love to be on the panel. I'm excited. And then the committee decides, oh, no, we need you to just read the intros, or we're going to have you run the slides. And it's like, I have a lot to contribute. I'm very much so becoming a subject matter expert in this space. And I remember bringing this to the attention of my advisors, right? I have 3 amazing advisors. They're all white men. And I said, has this ever happened to you? You know, and just having to like address, this is not normal. This shouldn't be happening. Why all of a sudden, like, is it, you know, I'm not going to, like, what is it about? I don't know. It's just weird, right? It's just weird. It's like, why is that happening to me and not everybody else? You know?
Right.
Like, that's questionable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, that aligns with some of the past guests. Joan, about 3 episodes ago, she talked about a case how at the office or one of her jobs, she was asked to take notes when she was actually supposed to be running the meeting. Like, one of the male engineers came up, hey, can you take notes? And she was like, actually, I'm going to be too busy and I got to run the meeting, you know, or something like that. And it's like, why would you assume that my role is, you know, somehow isn't necessary to where I can be given this extra task or whatever, you know, not to say that, you know, someone's too good to take notes, but like you said, like, does that happen to anyone else in here? Like, did you think about asking anybody else, you know, do they take notes? And that's definitely relevant. I guess just another, like, perhaps place where you can kind of school me again, like, you went to a HBCU.
Yes.
Which, again, you explained your takeover was a historically Black college university. We have them primarily in the southeast of the United States, some in the northeast. I don't think we have any out west, maybe 1 or 2.
I don't think so, yeah.
About 100 or so here in the United States. So shout out to HBCUs. I'm an HBCU graduate. You went to NCA&T. Were there anything, can you give me the pros and cons that you saw as a Black woman in going to a school like an HBCU? And then, and when I say pros and cons, I mean where, all right, perhaps there were pros from a Black perspective, but maybe still cons from being a woman in the engineering department, because I'm sure there was still a disparity. So maybe you can share a little bit about that experience and things you noticed during that time. Yeah,
sure. I mean, of course, I'm going to start with how much I loved my experience at A&T. It was amazing. And I do think that there's a different energy at HBCUs than, like, now, this is not a guess. I've been to an HBCU, a public PWI, and a private PWI. So I've been able to kind of take note of the nuances between these 3 different types of schools. And I feel like HBCUs are very much so, we're all going to get through this together. I think when we talk about public and private PWIs, it's definitely more competitive.
PWI stands for predominantly white institution. Right. Just want to make sure, our audience is following. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So
and so I feel like even in that, I feel like it was a decent mix of men and women in most of my classes, but I did not have many women professors.
Yeah.
That is what I really, really remember. There's like one, and I always get her name wrong, and I feel terrible because it's like, how did I forget the one? But I think her name's like Tanksley, something like that. But she was like the Black woman in engineering. Everyone knew her. She was now a department chair. You know, she's like doing big things. But like she was pretty much the only Black woman that I had while I was at A&T. And I did still find that a bit shocking. Like, you kind of would think that there would just be more Black women in engineering professors. So I definitely noted that disparity as a student. And then in my interactions, like, I had great study groups. They were mostly women, right? I was able to do that. I also am an AKA. So for those of you all who know about Black Greek letter organizations, I'm in a sorority. A nice chunk of my line sisters are engineers. There's a whole bunch of us that are engineers.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you're an auntie. That's what's up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always had like women to study with, other Black women. And so I definitely leaned into that. Now, in the classroom, you know, you deal with the same things, right? People speaking over you, men mansplaining things.
Yeah.
You know, misogynoir is a very special flavor of misogyny that's reserved for Black women. Sometimes you do with that. I think now as an adult, it's like, well, they were 18, 19-year-old boys growing up. And I think I sometimes give a little leeway for those experiences compared to someone who's doing it now when I'm good and grown. So those things are common, and that's a common thread even still now, right? Dealing with mansplaining or misogyny or something, assuming I don't know something. So otherwise, though, my time at A&T really was great. The research experiences I had were amazing. Like, I feel like I would have not had that elsewhere. I wouldn't be on the path I am now if I didn't go to an HBCU.
Yeah. You brought up something, and honestly, I didn't expect to go here, but, I remember Eduardo saying, shout out to Eduardo again, don't be afraid to be controversial. And I kind of have two different controversial routes I guess we could take it. First, let me just say, I appreciate your honesty with was it misogynoir? I never heard that particular term, but just misogyny, I guess, for sure. And obviously, there's some things that have happened in even the STEM community recently that has brought that to the forefront. And while, yes, we all mature, we all grow, I think as we get mature, we as men have to make sure we hold younger men and really everyone accountable so that doesn't ever have a pass, right? And so in certain environments, things like that can continue to grow and enhance. And I don't know. I'm just wondering if you have any extra to say on that as a word of just, hey, as a Black woman, here's what you need to hear from me about that, men as it relates to misogyny or misogynoir in general. And then I have another controversial, kind of controversial question too, but let me go ahead and ask you that.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is, don't assume that, well, one is like, don't be a jerk. You don't have to be a jerk. I think that sometimes, especially in the engineering space, everyone is really intelligent. Everyone, and honestly, I think everywhere there's different levels and different types of intelligence. But we know in engineering there's a certain type of intelligence that we all carry. And so you should assume that people that are in the same spaces as you have the same understanding that you do. At the very least, give them the benefit of the doubt and be willing to share. I feel like in a way that is helpful. I think that's where misogyny kind of, or mansplaining specifically, gets where it's not helpful. Like, you're explaining, essentially the ABCs of engineering to me. Like, I'm at this level, I clearly know the ABCs of engineering, and then also, like, I think that men can they can be allies. I have a really dear friend here in my program, my homeboy Prithvi. He has always done a great job, even when we're in classes, saying, hey, I think so-and-so said something, like, specifically when women are cut off in class, just saying, bringing it back to the attention, using his male privilege to say, hey, I think, so-and-so had a comment about that, or was bringing that to our attention, or didn't so-and-so just say that? One time, like, our youngest member of our cohort was taking notes. He's like, why is the youngest person in this class taking notes? And just kind of bringing that to our attention. And so I think that men can absolutely also be a part of the change. And I think those are like some great practical examples of when you hear someone cutting off your colleague who happens to be a woman, be like, hey, what were you saying? And especially when people say the same thing again, bring it back to the attention of the group. Like, oh yeah, Alante just said that. That's okay. It's okay to do that.
For sure. Yeah, I think just to be transparent, have unintentionally sometimes, from a personality standpoint, kind of like just maybe like not taking things as in much consideration when I hear it said by someone or by a woman or something like that. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's something that we need to take note of. And so thank you for that woman's perspective. The other sort of controversial thing, and hey, I appreciate like the honest dialogue coming in the chat. We see someone said that they went to USF in Tampa and had 2 Black female professors who were great and a whole bunch of Black students, men and women. And I guess they're getting at the point that not all, non-HBCUs are necessarily saying, not all PWIs are the same way, right? But here's the question, though. Here's the question, because here's maybe where someone is getting at, like, is there still a purpose for HBCUs, right? Like, they were created during a time of segregation, during a time where we as Black people weren't allowed to go to the same school. Now, since that it is possible, since, you know, the comment said there are a whole bunch at USF, I mean, is there still a purpose? You can say your piece, and, you know, I can follow up.
Yes, what? Absolutely. Like, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. And yet, I don't want to say that there aren't like amazing places. I know about USF. Rice is also a really great place. I know they have they graduate a large amount of Black engineers as well at that university. So it's not saying that it's all bad. I thank you for bringing that to our attention, Emily. Or making sure it's clarified. Yes. However, I do think that HBCUs have a purpose, and they serve a great purpose in our community now, because for so many reasons. One, I think in culture, like it's just nothing like it. There's nothing like homecoming, nothing like the band, all of those things. I know that's not the engineering side, but also like I'll give an anecdote. Since I've been here, my advisor wanted me to talk to a like 18-year-old like freshman who was having some challenges in one of her groups, and she was the only Black girl in the group. And he's like, "Can you talk to her? Can you support her? Help her figure out what to do?" And I said, at 18, I didn't have to think about that. That wasn't on my mind about how I was going to be treated, or worried about it because I'm Black or because I'm a woman, I'm being treated a certain way. And I think that, I know many people say, well, you know, PWI is the real world, you know, all of these things. However, I do feel when one is still maturing and growing and trying to simply explore what their interest is, having to deal with the layers and the weathering that takes place of being a person of color in a really predominantly white space, I think it's more taxing than it has to be all the time, right? Yeah. Some people have different experiences. They totally have like no issues. But when he said that to me, my response was, at that age, I did not deal with that. I was at an HBCU. I didn't have that I didn't get treated like that. Again, I know that doesn't happen everywhere, but I just think that there's that piece. Also, when we talk about research, so, you know, I'm a graduate student. Typically, research experiences, I feel like there's probably a study that shows that, like, if you're like first generation, low income, or minoritized, you just typically may not even have the capacity to consider research experience or be selected for a research experience because you don't have the skills needed beforehand for whatever reason. And HBCUs are a place that give us those opportunities. I had zero research skills, zero. Didn't know what research was. I'll tell you all how I decided to do a PhD. I was doing research my sophomore year. After I failed all my classes, we'll have to talk about that part. And I loved it. I was like, this is dope. Like, I love that I get to create knowledge. I'm like, what is this? What job is this? That is how I asked about graduate school. What job does this? They're like, oh, you get a PhD. I said, okay. But I don't think that would have happened if I would have failed my classes at my PWI. Maybe I would have been shuffled to a new department and sent to on a whole nother track out of STEM, right? But instead, at my HBCU, my advisor was like, you're going to take these classes over this summer. You're going to do research for me so you can have some money in your pocket. And now, you know, I'm here. And I'm just really not convinced that would have happened anywhere else but at A&T.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that's not really much I can really add to that because, you know, we mirror each other. I went to HBCU as well as a PWI. And, I think I just want to call out, Renee says Dr. Trina Fletcher works at an MSI, Minority Service Institute in South Florida, and does incredible work around highlighting HBCU engineering success, i.e. Morgan State being a top producer of Black engineers. Let's see, Hallie Marie says, I've noticed at my university the lack of diversity on our faculty. We've been calling it out, asking them to address it, and work for more diversity and representation. Absolutely. Very, very important. And I just want to say this, and again, like, absolutely, like, to your point, that not all PWIs are the same. You know, Georgia Tech is another great one for a lot of Black engineers that isn't an HBCU. But those are still anomalies. Like, statistics out there, I've actually been getting this report, Engineering by the Numbers, every year that shows the HBCUs, or this shows the top producers of Black engineers, right? And you see HBCUs kind of all up in the top. And then there are some PWIs, but then you see across the board, it's still a dearth. It's still severe underrepresentation, not just for Blacks, but also for Hispanics and indigenous communities as well. So yes, there are some bright spots, but there's still a need for places that make it their business to develop, to nurture, and to affirm us as Black people, not just in STEM, but in all fields. So I think that is fantastic. You gave a fantastic answer, Alante. And you went into another point about grad school, why you went into grad school, right? And can you talk a little bit about just the purpose of grad school? Because here's something I think anybody, regardless of whether you relate to us as Black people or you relate to Alante as a woman, you have some knowledge. You are, I guess I like to say, a guru, a grad school guru. I think I've called you that before. Yeah. And so let's break it down for the people, because I know a lot of people watching this like, yo, I just want to get my engineering degree and get a job. You know, why should one even consider grad school, or the situations where grad school are more important than other situations? Break down the whole value proposition of grad school, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me say, as an engineer, I totally get it. Like, I have friends who are making a whole bunch of money with a bachelor's. Okay, like, I just want to say I acknowledge that completely, and this path is not for everybody. Just like we know, engineering, isn't for everybody. So I decided to go to graduate school again because I enjoy research. I love creating knowledge. I did not really like the idea of like being an engineer didn't exactly move me. I've always had a love for teaching. And then when I discovered research, I'm like, oh, I just like creating stuff, right? And like getting to play around with things. And can you do the same thing at your job? Absolutely. But there are typically deliverables. There's a bottom line, attached to that. There's some deadlines. Yeah. It's still very much so structured. Even the one corporate job I was at, like every other Friday was like an innovation day, and it's a half a day to be creative.
Which is cool. Not all companies have that, but that's pretty, even that's, kind of rare and pretty cool though.
Okay. Yeah. But it's still like 4 hours every 2 weeks. I have infinite hours, to be creative within engineering and within my space. And I find it really fascinating. Like, I'm going to tell you what my 19-year-old self said in that lunchroom, okay? This is a job where I can't be wrong. The cool thing about research is even when you found out nothing, you found out something, right? Like this approach doesn't work. And I think that is why research is so compelling and exciting to me. And if you are someone who enjoys that type of like just open-ended, just want to just get a problem and figure it out essentially all on your own, because the grad school is also very much so an individualistic process. Then it might be something that you would consider. I don't think, like, admittedly, I would not say like financially that is the incentive for engineers. That is not our incentive, right? I think
grad school isn't necessarily the way to the big bucks for engineering. No. I have friends who eclipsed my starting salary, like 5 years ago for being an engineering professor. But I think that if you really love teaching and you love engineering, right, you want to talk about it and help people understand it, and you want to create knowledge, then this path is definitely like a route that, you'll find a lot of fulfillment in. And that's really what I think when I talk to specifically friends who are in engineering. Like, I think I'm going to grad school. Why? What do you need? Will it give you more than like a $20,000 bump that you would, in a shorter amount of time? Because that's what happens with the master's. Or is this a topic or an area that you really want to like sink your teeth in for like 10, 15 years? What do you think? No, that's good. This is, again, just to reset the room, as they say on Clubhouse. Everybody's coming in. This is Women in STEM Wednesday, episode 4. We have Alante Whitmore of Blackened in Grad School, and she just got finished telling us, the reason why one would consider grad school is one black woman's perspective on grad school and engineering. That's what we're talking about here. And what I heard you say is, grad school, don't look at it as the fast track to the big bucks, but rather an opportunity to go as I heard other people say, you know, an inch wide and a mile deep, right, on a given topic, as opposed to a mile wide and an inch deep, right? You can kind of really dig in. And then I love the idea of creating new knowledge, which is cool. Shout out to Dede Dre. I want to get my master's in transportation engineering. Okay, shout out to you. Shout out to you. As you know, I went the whole route myself too. Here's a couple of questions as we get ready to kind of come to close, because this has been great. I want to get some questions in. Can you give me advice for me to be a big civil engineer? When you say big civil engineer, I'm gonna ask if she can clarify.
Okay.
In the chat, what do you mean by big civil engineer? I don't know if you interpret that one way or another, Alante.
Yeah.
But we'll take a few questions, y'all. What's your advice?
I would just say with big, it's like, well, the cool thing about civil, it's so wide ranging. Like you could be a big pavement person, a big bridge person, a lot of different things. Half of, you know, a nice chunk of it is relationships, picking an area, right? Picking an area of expertise, like Dr. Nehemiah, he is like the bridge subject matter expert, you know, out here on TV shows explaining to us how bridges work. And so, almost like, well, I should actually just go back and ask you, Dr. Nee. But I definitely would say that, you know, picking an area and just really doing a deep dive and becoming a expert in that topic is how you very much so, you know, you become prominent. Definitely I feel like Twitter is a place where a lot of engineers are at, and get active on there and meet people, show up to conferences, share your work is a way that you definitely will get notoriety, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. Shout out to you. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, Ragnar. There's no problem. She said network. Basically, that sounds what I hear a lot of what you're saying. You know, really put yourself out there and pick a niche that you can really become well known in. And that's something I can say about the people that I've worked with too. Even the owner of the firm that I've worked with, man, he knows everybody in the field. He's like the go-to person for certain types of projects, which is definitely a good piece of advice, Alante. After graduation, okay, yeah. So she touched on that. Definitely put yourself out there and really start networking. Any other questions? I see we had another question. Hope I didn't miss it earlier. Yeah. Okay. Having a hard time scrolling already back.
I know, I'm trying to scroll too.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. How can I become before starting a job? Yes. So definitely you want to get your degree in it. You get your formal training in it. I do recommend internships. Alante, what do you think about that when it comes to, you know, getting some real world experience, even if you are going to maybe go on to a master's? What are your thoughts on that, on internships and apprenticeships?
Do them. I think internships, research experiences, the cool thing, especially if you're still in undergrad, is it lets you explore what you like, right? Like I did one internship in corporate and I was like, nah.
Right.
You know, point me in the direction. Yeah, it was, but I got to know that through that experience. And so I think it'll also help you figure out, even like, I think Ragbad, or Ragad was asking, because I've scrolled too far. How do you pick even an area, right? By getting experiences. And that's the cool thing about engineering. You can try a bunch of different things. Our skills are very transferable. I mean, very transferable. You could pivot like I have if you need to, if you're interested in doing so. So all the internships, be open, and you might find you really like something that you didn't expect. Yeah.
Farrington said, my member of parliament for Newcastle Central is a female Black engineer. Cool. Who graduated from Imperial College in London in electrical engineering. That is awesome. One more comment question. How do you deal with imposter syndrome when starting grad school? This is a whole nother, we can do a whole nother interview on this one, but let's see if you can give them just a little bit of insight on that. Good question, candidly.
Yeah. If I'm going to do it succinctly, once you've been admitted, you belong there, period. You know, and you have to just kind of convince yourself of that. And I think preparation also is to your benefit. I realize sometimes when I feel insecure or nervous about something, it's just because I need to spend some more time in that material.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just, like you said, know that you belong there. Yeah. Don't let the feelings trick you. I love it. Well, before we get out of here, go ahead and plug the podcast. What you got going on, Black in Grad School? Because you all, again, this is my personal grad school guru. Even though I've been through grad school, if I need to point somebody that wants to know something about grad school, Alante is who I point them to. But go ahead and plug your podcast, what you're doing with your brand before we let you go.
For sure. So I've spent the last 3 years chronicling my experience through my Ph.D. program. I also interview other Black graduate students. My podcast is for women and people of color. If you are neither, you can still enjoy the podcast. There's a lot to learn. If you're thinking about, if you want to be an ally, you want to know about our experiences, it's a great podcast. Dr. Nehemiah's episode dropped last week. So
what a cool coincidence, you know?
I know, it worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
So you should, you can listen to his experience. There's literally 137 episodes.
Wow.
So lots of stories. And the whole point, even, talking about Black history, is that I hope that one day people will be able to go back and listen to this podcast when they're feeling demotivated, disheartened from their graduate school experience. They could pick an episode and hear the voice and hear the story of another person who made it through.
Yeah. I love it. We getting some cosigns too. Your female engineer said the podcast is fire. Paulina says fire, fire. Virtual Diary and Becoming Dr. H. The podcasts are fire! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! We love you, Alante. You all listen. I see there are some questions that kind of came in late. Maybe that's because of the lag. But go follow Black in Grad School, and I'm sure she'll be happy to engage you on her platform. Alante, I just want to say again, shout out to you on behalf of this whole Women in STEM Wednesday. And I want to also, again, acknowledge Eduardo from Engineering Memes Guy and Luminous Automation, as well as Sandra. Sandra is, the mastermind behind this whole series. So shout out to you, Sandra. And for those of you who are looking for that support, not just, emotionally, but even technically, Papaya Tutor is a place where you can get that tutoring. You can get that help. If you are a person who happens to fall into an underrepresented group as a woman or person of color, Papaya Tutor, make sure that you have even representation on that side of the assistance. So, Alante, any final words to the Engineering Memes Guy audience before we say goodbye?
Just keep going, y'all. Persistence is key. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, Alante.
Bye.
We'll see you later. Bye. Thanks for joining us for another Women in STEM Wednesday. Again, I have been your guest. I have been your guest host, Dr. Nee of STEMedia, Nehemiah Mabry. This has been an honor and a privilege. Again, shout out to the sponsors, Luminous Automation and Papaya. Go check them out. And STEMedia, the production company, my company behind this. And we hope to see you all next week on another Women in STEM Wednesday. Take care.